This is the Louie T Network.
Who else could it be? Me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to lockdown coverage week number 7 in the National Football League, NFC West family business. If these two teams say they ain't did it, then they ain't did it. But if they did, well, that's family business. And really, the Rams, they said they did it. And by the looks of the score, yeah, they did it. They murdered the Arizona Cardinals. And not only them in this game, but their chances of doing anything of substance in 2017 by injuring Carson Palmer and breaking his forearm. And so, wow. I knew the Rams were the better team. I didn't know they were the better team by this wide a margin. And this was a neutral site. So, really, this is a really good way to measure these two teams up against each other. This is a neutral site game. There's no home field advantage whatsoever between the two teams. The Rams are just flat out better than the Cardinals. They proved it in this game. And I knew that last week's last hurrah with all the old guys, I hate to throw Larry in there because I think Larry could do it for another 5 years if he wanted to. But Palmer and Peterson and that whole group, that was cute. I looked at that acquisition of Adrian Peterson as a team getting a new head coach in season. It's going to give you a boost for like a week or two, but eventually that new car smell is going to wear off, and then it's not going to matter anymore. You're just going to go back to being the old funky team that you were. I feel the same way with the Cardinals. Like, I looked at this team and I said, man, that was impressive against Tampa, but you're not going to be able to do that every week because that new car smell is going to wear off and you're going to go back to being the same, I don't want to call them funky, but, same kind of stale smelling Cardinals. Carson Palmer isn't good. I told you that before. Adrian Peterson gives this team another dimension, but if you take that dimension away, you're back to where you were before you traded for Adrian Peterson, which is relying on Carson Palmer. Well, now Palmer is not even in the mix. And this is where not drafting a quarterback, even if for developmental purposes, this is where it bites you in the ass because now you're back to Drew Stanton and company, and that's the worst possible place you could be. And now there was a slight glimmer of hope, even albeit slight. The Rams literally shut down any beam, any ray of light. It's now total darkness in Arizona after this 33-0 throttling at the hands of the Rams over in London. And I said the Rams were legit and they're going to compete for this division. I still don't think they're going to win it. I think that distinction is going to go to Seattle still. I don't think they're ready for that. But this Rams team showed me that for sure they clearly put a delineation between them and Seattle and everybody else in the division with this win. It's a two-team race, which is what I thought all along. I've said it numerous times. But I needed to see it. And I said, this is going to be a big test because Arizona thinks they belong in that discussion for this divisional crown. They think they got a shot. And I said, they don't. And you need to go out and prove it. And not only did they go out and prove it, they put their foot on the throats of the Arizona Cardinals. They crushed their windpipe and their larynx. And now those guys are done. And that's the way you do it. Sometimes the best love is tough love when you're a family member. Sometimes you got to be mean to drive home a point. And that's what the Rams did in this game. And that second quarter really was the difference in this football game. They went out, they scored like 20 points in the second quarter. The Cardinals couldn't get them off the field on third downs. And they continued to move the football down the field, ate up a ton of time of possession. And then they ultimately put the backbreaker on the Cardinals by injuring Carson Palmer right before the half. And that was all she wrote in this ballgame. You knew Drew Stanton wasn't going to bring him back. And furthermore, we didn't know how serious the injury was. But anytime you see a guy clutching his wrist, not really wanting it to be, down by his side, but kind of babying and nursing the wrist, or any body part for that matter, shoulder, whatever, when you see a guy favoring it that heavily as he walked off the field gingerly, you had to know something was seriously wrong. And if he was out for any, as bad as I talk about Carson Palmer at this point of his career, as bad as I think Carson Palmer can be at times, he was the best shot they had. And you take him out of the mix, those guys are done. And the Rams, they've now put themselves in a position to where it's them and Seattle, and if they want this division, it's there for the taking. They got to go out and find a way to go get it. But if you haven't already done so, subscribe to the Louie T Network for more great content in 2017 and beyond. We're changing the game over here. I want you to help us do that by simply hitting the subscribe button and becoming a member of the Louie T Network. I've got a number of social media platforms that I'm a part of. There's Twitter, there's Instagram, there's YouTube, there's Facebook. All of the links to those platforms are down in the description below. So if you want to link up and keep abreast of what's going on here on the Louie T Network, those are the best ways to do it, and they are all in the description down below. Also in the description is a way to donate to this channel via those two sites, Patreon and PayPal. Both of those links you see before you are also in the description below. So get acquainted with those. If you can donate, I ask that you please donate to this channel, as we're trying to really take a huge step forward. And the best way for me to be able to do that is through donations from viewers like you. And I thank you in advance for anything that you are able to offer up. But again, if you cannot, all I ask is that you continue to do the things that you've done in the past for this channel by supporting, watching, liking, and sharing these videos. That being said, let's quickly run through this. We'll start with the Rams because they just utterly destroyed any hopes of the Cardinals having a season, and that's the way you're supposed to do it. Utterly disrespect a family member to their face and tell them you're not going anywhere but home. And sometimes you got to do that. And the Rams, in effect, 33-0, not only did that in this game, but really to the hopes of the Cardinals season, they were dashed with this win and the injury to Carson Palmer. They were downright dominant in this football game. Jared Goff was solid. He wasn't great in this football game. He didn't need to be. He just needed to be mistake-free, or at least not turn it over as much. He had one interception thrown in this game, but for the most part, he even used his legs. That was refreshing. When he ran for that touchdown in the second quarter, that's when I said, oh, they're going to win this game. Because now, you saw everybody rally around him, and they were pumped when he ran that football in for a touchdown. Jared Goff doesn't run very often, so when he does, you know it's a big play, and that was a huge play in a big second quarter that really bust this game wide open. All the mistakes started to flow free from the Cardinals, and the Rams took advantage of each and every single one of those mistakes, whether it be a touchdown or the field goal right before the half that really bust this game open. They took advantage of all the Cardinal mistakes, all the injuries. The Cardinals tried to come out and establish a run. The Rams would have none of it. They said, look, you're not doing what you did last week. You're not running the football. You're going to have to throw it if you're going to beat us. And we'd like to see you try to throw it against us. And they were able to shut down Adrian Peterson, make the Cardinals one-dimensional, get after them, force them off the field on third downs, get the football to their offense, who dominated on third downs, 13 of 19 on third downs, which is a ridiculous amount of conversions. And that's why they almost had 40 minutes of time of possession. Anytime you are able to go 13 of 19 on third downs, you're going to possess the football. And what does that mean? You're going to dominate time of possession. That's what the Rams did in this football game, especially in the decisive second quarter when this game, it was 3-0 going into the second quarter. It was 3-0. And then the floodgates opened in the second. They started to dominate. They started to run the football effectively. Jared Goff started to connect with Robert Woods, Samuel Watkins, and a host of other guys that touched the football in this game. They started to gain confidence. They started to separate themselves from the Cardinals, and the Cardinals started to make mistakes. They started to turn the football over, and they ultimately found themselves in a huge deficit that without Carson Palmer, they were not going to be able to come back from. And it was 23-0 at halftime, and the Rams basically didn't look back from there. Dominant performance on the offensive side of the football. Right now, Todd Gurley is in a select few of players who are in the runnings for the MVP. Now, again, it's very early in the season. Things can change very drastically. But right now, Todd Gurley is in a select few group of players right now that have thrown their name in the hat for MVP consideration at this juncture of the season. He's been outstanding. Another 100-yard rushing effort for him. He's also a dual threat, can catch it out of the backfield. He's been phenomenal for this Rams team, continues to be so in this game. Like I said, Goff was good, wasn't great, didn't need to be, but also used his legs, which is something they're going to need him to do moving forward when the time comes and he has to escape the pocket. He can't be afraid to use his legs to extend plays. And also the defense was dominant. They pitched a shutout, and again, once they got Carson Palmer out of the game, that became a lot easier to do, but they still had to stop the run. The focal point of the offense was going to be the run game. They made a concerted effort to stop the run game, 11 carries, 21 yards for Adrian Peterson, shutting him basically out of this ball game, making them one-dimensional, and getting after whomever was at quarterback, albeit Palmer or Drew Stanton. They were dominant in this football game. They got after the run game, then they got after the quarterback. They stopped the Cardinals from converting third downs, got the football back to their offense, and their offense was able to do the rest. This was an all-around assault by the Rams on the Cardinals as they get it done 33-0. There were 3 shutouts in Week 7. Again, such a hard task to accomplish in the National Football League, yet 3 teams were able to do it. The Rams were the second of 3 teams to pitch a shutout in Week number 7. For the Cardinals, this is a devastating blow to your football team. I listened to Larry Legend talk after the game at the press conference, and he sounded dejected. He sounded like a man that was ready to retire at the podium at that moment, because he realized with Carson Palmer's injury goes any hopes of having a successful season this year, and really that's probably the end of Carson Palmer's career. No one likes to go out injured, but Palmer was already kind of thinking and mulling over retirement. I think this might push him over the edge. And he'll probably say, you know what, I'm done. It was a nice ride, but I'm finished. This game has given me a lot, but I'm done. And if Palmer's gone, and you can't, and I think the only way you keep Larry Fitzgerald in Arizona, because he can still play at a very high level. He's got a lot of football left in him. And I think he still wants to play. But if he's going to lose, he doesn't want to play anymore. That's not fun. If Drew Brees is some way able to get out of New Orleans, which I think is very possible, even though they're winning right now, and I was expecting New Orleans, and they still could, the bottom could fall out of their season, and Sean Payton could be gone, and Drew Brees could be gone, and they could start anew in New Orleans. If some way, somehow, he's able to get out of New Orleans, the perfect spot for him would be in Arizona, because there's so much talent there. You insert a quarterback like Drew Brees, and this team automatically becomes a Super Bowl contending type of football team. So if you get that caliber of quarterback in Arizona, Larry Fitzgerald is around. If you tell him you've got to start over from ground zero with a brand new quarterback, I think he's going to hang it up. And listening to him in the press conference, that's the message, and that's the tone of voice, and that's what I took from listening to him talk. And that was a tough injury for that team to endure, even though I don't think they were going anywhere, and I didn't think Carson Palmer was going to lead them where they ultimately wanted to go. At least he gave them an opportunity. You take him out of the mix, they don't have an opportunity now. They struggled to run it in this game, which I figured they would. They struggled to throw it because the run wasn't effective, which I knew was going to be a domino effect of the run not working. You look at the defense in this game, they simply just didn't stand a chance because the offense didn't sustain offense. And so by virtue of them being on the field as much as they were, they suffered the consequences of a team that was just tired. Tired from travel, tired from being on the field all the time, tired from not being able themselves to get off the field on third downs. They were just a tired group, and it ultimately came to a head in this game as they give up 33 points en route to a 33-0 massacre at the hands of the Rams over in London. These fans in London have been treated to some bad football this season. The Dolphins, if I'm not mistaken, got shut out over in London by the Saints, the last game that was over there. The game before that was a travesty in which the Ravens were absolutely emasculated by the Jags 44-6. And now you have this ass whooping of epic proportions, 33-0. I feel bad for London because they want good football. You want to convert fans, you need to have good games. It has been a train wreck over in London this year as the games have been non-competitive. Every single one of them has been a farce this season. Rams get the win nonetheless, stay atop the NFC West at 5-2 with this impressive win, separate themselves from the rest of the pack and now it's a two-team race. It's between them and Seattle. I still think Seattle, when it's all said and done, going to win this division. I expect Seattle to sweep this Rams football team after already having went to Los Angeles, having won a game that the Rams should have won. Nonetheless, we're going to see what happens. This division is shaping up to be a hell of a two-team race, and the Rams refuse to go away with this dominant performance over the Cardinals, who now drop to 3-4 and really see their hopes of being a relevant team in this division dashed after the injury to Carson Palmer. Let's get to some comments quickly before we move on. Don't have time to take a lot of comments, so I'll take as many as I can. I'll pick out some, and then we'll move on. BE says, well, there goes our season, and why the hell is it every time we play the Rams, we lose a major player? This is like the third or fourth time we've lost Palmer for the year. Every time, and you're right, every time you play the Rams, it seems like you lose a quarterback. It is amazing that team has that effect on your football team every single year. He says, every week I make my picks and we lose. I get double digit, and when we win, I get under 10 wins. Well, get used to having double digit wins then, because there are going to be a lot of Cardinal losses coming your way. So that should benefit you in making your picks down the road. BE says, only bright spot on the defense is Peterson, Chandler Jones, Bethea, and Branch. And Bethea is relatively old, so you're hoping that the young guy, Buda Baker, can step up into that role, because Bethea probably only has 2, maybe 3 max good years of football left in him, if that. He also says, when Palmer went down, it was 13-0. We had a decent backup quarterback. We could have still made a game out of it, but nope, we have Drew Stanton. This better be his last season with us as well. I think you're going to start to see wholesale changes. Drew Stanton is there because of the comfort level with him and Arians. I think Arians is gone after this year because this season is about to go south, and I think Arians just doesn't have the patience to restart this thing all over again. And with no Carson Palmer moving forward, that's exactly what's going on. Unless, and again, I keep saying this, the huge caveat is if you get a guy like Drew Brees in the mix, then I think everybody comes back, including, unfortunately for you, Drew Stanton as well. Nonetheless, he says, blueprint to beat the Niners. Give our backs a total of 40 carries. Look what Zeke did to them. Yeah, that's the case. Can you duplicate what the Cowboys did? I don't know if you're capable of doing that. Dark Fears Fire Gaming says, Rams win and 11 wins from my great picking. Maybe pick up the joystick and learn a thing or two. I love it, man. BE also says, I hate how college has no fighting rule. This kid came up in my face today laughing at the Cardinals loss and that he's happy Palmer got his arm broke. Only fighting was allowed. Yeah, that's garbage. I can't stand when people celebrate the injury of another person. That's stupid. But nonetheless, Captain Spartan 04 says, I have a feeling Cardinals going to try to trade for Connor Cook for some reason. Why? I mean, you still are starting over with Connor Cook. I don't know if that does anything for them. Dark Fears Fire Gaming says, rate Goff so far this season. I think Goff has been really good for this team. I told you when Sean McVay, a.k.a. Boy Wonder, got his hands on him, he was going to change the way you perceived Jared Goff to be in this league. And I told you he was going to change what you thought of Jared Goff as a quarterback. And I said, if a quarterback is bad, he's going to make them mediocre. If a quarterback is mediocre, he's going to make them good. If a quarterback's good, he's going to make them great. If a quarterback is great, he's going to make him legendary. Well, when he got his hands on Jared Goff, everyone thought he was bad. He's elevated him, and I didn't think he was going to be bad in his NFL career. I just thought he would be mediocre. A guy that could start for you, but probably not the kind of guy you want. Well, now that he's got a real offensive mind behind him, he's taking a mediocre quarterback and making him good. And you could argue that with more time in his system and more comfortability with Sean McVay and what he's looking for, he may turn Jared Goff from good to great down the road. So I think he's been really good this season. BE says, our season may be dead, even though I always say never, but go out and ruin some seasons of our own. And you got a chance to still do that. You got a chance to still wreck some seasons for sure. You got the Seahawks twice still, and you got this Rams team once more at home. So you still can do some damage in the division for sure. Cloud says, Rams are a real threat, man. That game in L.A. will be harder than I thought. It will be. You got some tough games coming up. That's why, even though the Eagles are playing some great football, they got some tough games still on the horizon. It'll be interesting to see because you still got a lot of teams that the rest of the division is either already played or some teams have already played. Like, the Raiders are going to be a better team when you see them. The Rams are going to be a much more confident team when you see them. So some things will change. Like the Cardinals, now I was upset that they had Adrian Peterson, and by the time I get to him, David Johnson will be back. But now without a quarterback, I feel confident that we should be able to take care of business, even if David Johnson is back. You do the same thing the Rams did. You buckle down on the run game and David Johnson, Adrian Peterson, whoever, and you make Drew Stanton beat you. And I think that's the blueprint there. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Cloud also says the Cardinals have to draft a quarterback in round 1 in the 2018 draft. They keep taking old quarterbacks and trying to make Super Bowl runs. They have to draft a quarterback. I thought this was the year to get one. They didn't do it. I think everyone jumped in front of them and got quarterbacks that they may have had their eye on, but they've got to do something at that position next year. They cannot keep having this same conundrum every single season. Silver V says, not sure how long Joyner has been in the NFL, but he doesn't get talked about as much as he should as a shutdown corner. I wouldn't say he's a shutdown corner, but he's been a great acquisition. Both teams, from that trade, I will tell you, both teams are excited about what they were able to get out of that trade. The Bills absolutely love E.J. Gaines. He's playing outstanding football for them. And, Joyner wasn't in that trade. But LaMarcus Joyner, I liked him coming out of Florida State. He was a feisty, physical corner that could play some safety if you needed him to. He tackles well, always around the football. Really like LaMarcus Joyner. And I think both teams are pleased with what they got. I think the Bills are excited about, like I said, E.J. Gaines. I think the Rams like what they're seeing out of Samuel Watkins. And I think both teams are happy. And then take it a step further, the Rams, where would they be without Robert Woods right now? I mean, they love what they've gotten from the Bill store. They went shopping at the Bill store, got some really good items, and I think they're really pleased with the returns that they've gotten and some of their investments from that Bills store up in Orchard Park, New York. But nonetheless, Rams dominate the Cardinals 6 ways to Sunday, 33-0, blanking the Cardinals in this game and possibly blanking them out of the rest of the season. We will see what happens with the Cardinals moving forward, as Carson Palmer going to be out at least the next 2 months, probably the remainder of the season, depending on how things go. We'll see what happens. But Cardinals leave this game at 3-4. Rams leave this game at 5-2, and for all intents and purposes, the Rams have now drawn a line in the sand in the NFC West, where it is now a 2-team race between the Rams and the Seahawks. This loss really drops the Cardinals down a huge rung in that NFC West division. That's going to do it for your man here, Louie T, on Lockdown Coverage. I got plenty more Lockdown coverage to go, so stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here on the Louie T Network. Come back and join me as I continue to break down anything and everything in the National Football League. Much more to come. Don't you go anywhere. I'll see you in a bit.